Hi everyone, it is 6/17/2020 and welcome to another Level Design Live lecture. Today we're going to be doing some experimentation. Specifically, I was requested to demonstrate some particle effects. So we're going to go through the basic process that I would use to mock up a simple particle, show you all the various pieces of the particle editor, and then create something for the project. So I'm back in the toy box scene. I know that we're kind of in week 3 now, so everyone should be working on first playable. The toy box still is like kind of a space to develop, whatever it is that you want to make. So I'm going to be doing it in here because there's just a lot less in my way that for anything that would be like, gameplay wise, a broken script causing an issue with compiling or anything. Just a simple testing space to build something. So the first thing that I want to build is going to, let's go ahead and use this player size object. Remember in a previous recording I had turned off, let's move this down here. I turned off the cylinder so I could see the character better. I'm going to use this one without the cylinder just so I can see with this character in mind what this would look like if I placed it next to it. So I want to make fire. Fire is like always the most default basic particle system. And I'm going to do specifically fire that creates smoke and then like be able to change like how big the area of fire is and that sort of stuff. So whenever I see someone start with creating fire, they usually start with a particle system, make it red, and do whatever they can with the editor and then call it a day. We're going to take it that extra mile and actually use some references, create some assets, and then go from there. So in Unity, the particle system is just another component that you can attach to a game object, but you can also create a game object with the particle system already attached to it. So if you go up to game object and we go to effects and then particle system, that'll give you the default particles, and we've got these dots flying up into the air. The orange outline here is just a selection gizmo. So if you want to work on this without the big orange outline, you can go up to gizmos and actually turn off the selection. That's handy when you're like selecting other objects because you get like the orange line around it. But when you're working with particles, it can be kind of frustrating. So there's a giant dot tornado of sorts. So this particle system is it's a transform that's emitting particles, right? You just see these dots emitting into space. And you can control these dots in terms of size, in terms of the amount. You can have them not looping like it's doing now. This is actually emitting over time and just continuously going and going and going. We could change it so it only does like a small burst. We could do have them fall like water. We could have them blow in the breeze and all sorts of stuff. But it's it going into any sort of editor, if you have a ton of options, you might start poking at options before you ever really have a plan. So I want to start us with a plan first before we ever go into actually making this. And so I said we're going to do fire. And I'm sure most of us have seen fire before. We've probably lit something on fire in a backyard or at a friend's house or whatever. You've had a campfire at some point. You've looked into a pizza oven as the fire's going and whatnot. We've all seen fire at some point. Never go off of the top of your head, because if you do that, you're going to get something that you think looks good enough, and then someone else is going to look at it and go, "Hey, that looks kind of poor. That's not what that looks like." If you use references, you're always going to get a better final product. And so we're going to go with references first to come up with what that is, and then we're going to look at what the particle system has in order to create something that matches what we're trying to do. So if I go down over to, I've got some windows open, some videos, some images. So here's fire, the image, Google Images, fire, this is what we get. There's a bunch of pictures of, curly, yellowy, orangey, reddy, swirling stuff. And so this is a general idea of what I want to look for when I'm making fire. And so some of the first things that I notice is like those colors and stuff, you know, red, yellow, you know, orange and that kind of stuff. Depending on, let's see, depending on what style of fire I want to do today, we may not do color over time and stuff, but we'll take a peek at it. So still images are great. It's a great way to kind of see what's happening, or what's happening in an image in an instant. But the best way to really pull motion is to find like a video of something, you know, moving, or to see something happening in real life. But I like videos because you can back up and then go forward and back up and go forward. So finding a slow motion video is even better. So there's a group on YouTube called the Slow Mo Guys, and they usually record a bunch of stuff in slow motion. And I like this one because, you know, obviously they're setting something on fire and then the one guy smacks the other guy, which is kind of funny. Yeah, there you go. So, and then we get fire, and then we'll see it actually like go into the slow motion. So here you see fire that starts out real thick at the bottom. It's bright when there's a lot of it on top of itself. It pulls and tears and rips away from the rest of it. You know, go ahead and add more so we can see it some more. You'll notice there's same images and shapes that the screenshots had, but now you can see them separate, and you get these little loops and hooks and turns and twirls. And so this gives me a basis of what I'm looking for. It's real thick at the bottom, and then it tears away and kind of disappears as it pulls further and further away from itself. So that's what I'm going to use as a basis for creating the beginnings of this particle system. Just, you know, identifying how something moves, make some assessments, logical steps, and be like, this is what I see happening, and then recreate those things as you work. So if I go back over to Unity, I want to start creating something that looks like that. So first of all, the fire was like right next to them, not this gigantic tornado. So I want to make sure that it's, you know, next to the player, it's, you know, about the same size if I'm trying to like match this type of fire. So let's change the particle system so that it kind of fits more so what I'm seeing in that video. So this is a game object. Here's particle system. Notice that the first component on here is particle system, and then there's a material at the bottom. We still have a transform and everything. I can always add scripts and other things to this, just like any other object. But this particle system component is kind of massive. There's a ton of modules on here, each one doing what they say on it, like rotation over lifetime, color by speed, trails, etc. And sometimes opening these and working on them within this like context is a little difficult. Thankfully, they've created this open editor button, so you can click open editor and it'll just pop this whole window open. And then you can have this all pulled open on the side. You've got a graph or curve editor over here. So if you ever go to one of these and you want to change something with values, or if you want to change something with like a curve will give you curves on here, and then you can be like, I want to start low and go high. That's, you know, size over lifetime. Notice that I did start low and go high, and already you see smaller dots, and then it goes bigger as it goes away. That would be really useful for like smoke, because smoke, when you see it kind of get created, it starts little and then slowly gets bigger and fills space, and, you know, continues to you know, move out from itself. I'm going to go the opposite for fire. I want big first and then little dots afterwards. So we can just flip this and go from 1 to 0. And now we have something that starts big and then goes little. It's still really far away from itself, though. And so we need to change essentially how long these particles are alive and how fast they're traveling. So the lifetime of a particle is, you know, from when it's born at the emitter, and then it travels until its death. So if we change our lifetime from 5 to like 1, you'll have something that dies much sooner. And then if we wanted to change, let's say let's go lower on the lifetime, how 0.5 or something. now we're here. And so at 0.5, it starts low and then it goes up. And then we can change speed and be like, maybe it's like 1, and now we have like a little glowy thing on the ground, right? And so there's little teeny things that we can tweak on here to make it change how this thing behaves. Right now, it's kind of moving out in a cone shape, and fire seems to move up unless it's like moved by wind or some sort of, some sort of force, right? So I want to make sure that it's moving up unless there's some sort of force. So let's bounce out of this. I'm going to return actually speed to like 5, but I'm going to go outside of this to actually let's make this look like fire. So start color, let's change start color to like red for right now, so we can actually see what this thing is doing. And so if I want this to be more like, my curve backwards still. Yeah, start size. Oh, start size is, sorry. Start size is randoming the size. It's not doing size over lifetime. Wrong one for what I'm looking for. This is just making them start at various random sizes. So let's go back to constant. So it's all the same size. But let's go down to one that specifically changes size over lifetime. So if I hide this one, go down to size over lifetime and turn this on. Now we're seeing something that's more like what I was saying earlier, the smoke thing. It's little at the beginning and big at the end. Now let's go in here and flip it. Now it's little, or as big at the beginning and little at the end. So leave that one on, and we're going to change our shape. So under shape, if you click on it, you'll get this cone. This is the shape of the emitter at the moment. If I take this and click on it, just like a collider, we can shrink it, make it like a little bit of a, like in a lot of games, they have like little glowy floor things. If it's, if you're playing any MMORPGs and it's like, get out of the zone, right? Then you have like this little zone area. Let's turn that on. There you go. So there's like a little thing. You can make it wider, make it smaller, fill all the dots in the little teeny tiny spot, or, pull this up and out or pull it in. It's just changing various things in here. So this, I can do more of like a cylinder if I want to do fire in like a cylinder shape. I commonly use a box for this, but I could probably do a cylinder and it would look a little nicer. So let's use that. It's more like a barrel, like if you're doing like a fire barrel of some sort. And this will just change how far those can travel. So let's go all the way up like that. It's fine. So there's the beginnings of this fire particle system. So you can see already they're kind of moving up and separating and getting smaller. It's starting to look more like fire. Let's move it out a little bit. So that's good. So it's circular right now. It's kind of hard to tell what this would look like if we started like moving it more like fire. I was saying earlier, it twists and tears and pulls away from itself. And so there are like a couple materials in the project that we could use. If I go to like renderer and then change material to just any sort of, it's like different effects materials in here. So like if I picked, I don't know, this thing, this flame thing. So the problem with these materials is these have been in here for quite some time and we haven't gone back through and changed some things. There are newer versions of the project that changed how the scene is rendered. And so some of these are just really hard to see. Like that one seems to be a lot better, but like when they're additive, they seem to be a lot more difficult to actually look at. Additive meaning, if we go back to the video, it was whenever things are laid on top of each other, they will get brighter because it's additive blending of color. So what I want to do is create our own material, and then we're going to set it up so that it actually looks the way we want it to for the project, so that it looks like it's emitting like light and things like that. Make it bloom. So inside of my folder, I'm going to create a material for the particle system. Create a material, and this will be VFX fire material. And let's go ahead and just assign it for right now. so we can see it as we change it. So in order to assign a material to a particle system, it's down here on renderer. Let's open that editor back up. So if I go to renderer, renderer's got like, if you're gonna billboard the particles, so billboards mean that if I look at it from any angle, it's always gonna face me. So if we even look at the bottom here, you'll see the flat line. And if I turn the camera, that flat line turns with me. You can switch this thing to like stretched billboards, and then they go like up like that. You can do horizontal billboards, and then it looks like that if you want to go from the top. Do something that covers the floor but doesn't, go in another direction. You can use meshes if you wanted to do like boxes. It's like already got cubes, so if you wanted to emit cubes, totally doable. This is great for like if you wanted to do like a wall like breaking apart, but you didn't want individual rigid bodies. You just wanted like brick particles. Totally doable. But I'm gonna switch this back to billboard because I want to see it from any angle that I look at it. And then let's change this. The material we have is like the splotched one that I clicked in here. I'm gonna put mine in here. So VFX Fire. Right now it's blank, so we're just gonna get this gray box. It's Minecraft Fire now. But I'm gonna change it in here now to turn it into whatever it is I'm trying to make it look like. So right now it's just a standard shader. The main thing that I want to look at, and let's turn this light on. Main thing I want to do is make it emissive so that we actually see some sort of a bloom coming from this. I'm gonna get +1, +2. There you go. So see that it creates like the little bloomy thing around there. That's what I want that to look like. So that as it's moving up, we get the glow around everything. So there's a couple different shaders in here for various ways to render objects. If we go under shader up here, you see standard and custom and mobile and everything. If we go under particles, there's like standard surface and standard unlit. Fire is always bright. Light does not cast on fire. It is unlit, meaning that it's always bright. Unlit is always going to be, like 100% color. So I'm going to do standard unlit and see what we got in here. So we've got rendering mode opaque. Fire is semi-transparent. You can see through it. It's translucent, so opaque. Let's go to, we got additive in here. So I'm gonna do additive. Now if I do additive, it's getting that little like non-emissive thing going. But emissive's turned off, so we can go back down to that. Let's go emissive. And then now it's doing the glow thing. And so once we change this to red, apply to systems, fine. Once we change this to an image of fire and then get it kind of red color, it should be closer. Actually, let's go to albedo. Albedo is color. It's like the default color map. And then under emission color, you can also assign an image to that as well. So if we go into albedo and I do, I don't know, I think it's called FX. So here's a bunch of different images that are in the project already. I'm gonna grab this splotch again, which we were using earlier. Looks a little weird. There's like smoke and soft clouds and other stuff in here. I'm gonna use splotch for right now just to get an idea of something. Particle system. So it's here, and it's on top of itself. Not a whole lot of like color going on. If I go into particle system, notice it's stark color. It's not taking that anymore. It's just bright. So underneath that material, and this is like something that had changed in the newer, or not the newer, I guess, this version of Unity, or versions around this where they changed how it colors particles and whatnot. So like if I go into a particle system and I wanted to like change this from red to like, I don't know, yellow, it doesn't seem to be taking any of that color. So I'm just gonna leave this at white for right now. I'm gonna even test this out and go to color over lifetime and be like, hey, do you change color over time? So if we went to like blue, I don't see anything happening. So I'm gonna turn that back to just white and ignore that for now. but we're going to change the color on the material instead. You could create custom materials if you are, or not custom materials rather, but custom shaders if you're okay with like shader language. Actually go additive and see if I can do fade here. Maybe that'll give me the color. If you're okay with shader language, you could probably figure out how to pass the color from the particle system into this type of shader and material, but that's not what we're going to do for this recording at the moment. That's a whole different ballgame. So I'm going to use, I guess, fade and then additive color mode for the particle system. And then we're just going to change the material to be the color we want. So on emission, I'm going to switch this to like a red. Yeah, there you go. You are already getting like something a little more fiery looking. So like red and maybe like orangey red. Go up one more. There we go. Just something that really, you know, stands out. If I change this to red, does it do anything? No. All right. So albedo doesn't seem to do anything unless I go white. I could go yellow or something in here. Yeah, that does seem to do something. So intensity, I'm going to leave this at, what, 0, I guess. Like default. And then this one, let's make sure it's like the red on the outside. Like a 4 right now. So 4, 3, 4, something. We could keep playing with it, but it's a good start for now. So there's fire blooming. And then once again, keep poking at these things to see if you can find something that looks like, you know, the type of blend mode that you would want. Yeah, like that doesn't, like eats away at it. But fade's probably okay. So fade will have to do. Additive's probably fine. So let's use that for now. So here's our particle system doing the basic stuff. I'm going to go ahead and kick the, one sec. I had a real quick question. Yeah, this video is being recorded and it'll go up on course resources. All right, so we're going to switch. Let's get this speed going a little faster. Lifetime a little higher just so I can see it, you know, up a bit. There we go. And then as it travels away, one of the first things that I'd mentioned earlier, but I haven't been able to get back to, is that rotation that it was doing. They seem to always be rotating or moving over time. Let's just get this above the ground. It's just a real bright ground. So what I want to do is actually get it to rotate over time. So there's a start rotation. Let's pop that editor back out. There's a start rotation on here that we can give it, and we can do rotation over its lifetime. So I'm going to go to start rotation, and if I do like 45 in here, you'll see they turn 45 degrees. If I go 360, you know, all the way 180. So what I want to do is 45 here, but I'm also going to do a random between two constants. So you actually can switch this from one number to a random between two different numbers and be like, I want to do like negative 45 and 45. And now we have kind of a variation of twist for these things. And so this isn't over time, it's just a start rotation. So now that I have it kind of, you know, turned a little bit in two different directions, so it looks, you know, varied, I'm going to change this to do rotation over lifetime. And so that's going to get us to start turning, but we're going to turn like fast. So like we can go 360 here and we get it spinning. We can also go in here and do a random between two constants and be like, you know what, negative 360. Go the other direction. So now we have particles going in two different directions with different start rotations, starting to get something that's going to be a little closer to fire. You can kind of already believe it a little bit, you know, staring at it as it twirls up and whatnot. But I really hate this image. Like this image is just not doing it for me. I want something that looks you know, a lot closer to my imagination of what this fire is, and these weird stick, you know, flat edges and stuff just aren't doing it. So what I'm going to do is create a sprite of my own using some of the reference images that we were looking at to make this look a lot more like, you know, what I want fire to look like. So going back out to Google, and we'll jump over to images. So in here, we've got a whole bunch of stuff to pick from. This little demonstration is not going to be something that everyone will immediately be able to do. If I'm going to be doing it in Photoshop, you may not have Photoshop. You can get a subscription for it if you would like to, but there are also Photoshop alternatives that you can use to do the same process. I'll describe it as I go, just so you kind of have an idea of what I'm doing. They all work like Photoshop alternatives all work very similarly, but just make sure they have layer support. If they have layers and transparency, then you're going to be okay. If they don't have those things, then it's not going to work out for you. So like GIMP, you can always go to GIMP. So I'm going to grab an image in here that I can start with, something that has a piece of, you know, like this fiery, twirly stuff that I can use to start with. Actually, this one has a bunch of stuff separated. That might actually work real well for me. I'm going to go ahead and copy, unless there's another one in here that stands out. Some of these have smoke on top of it. Yeah, there's like little bits of loops and things and stuff. That might be good. Something like that. That's also nice. Actually, I'm going to start with this one. Let's copy that. I'm going to copy this image, and I'm going to jump over to Photoshop. And so I've got an image started here. The image size I have set to 128 by 128, and there's a reason for this. So when you're working on textures for games, you always want to try and make your texture size powers of 2. And then one of the easiest ways I've learned to remember powers of 2. If you ever think about why they call like different gaming generations, the 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit, 128-bit, 256-bit, the different generations before we stopped caring about memory. We just started going with whatever the consoles were named. So like Super Nintendo being 32 and Nintendo 64 was 64-bit. Those are all powers of 2. And so whenever you're making textures, we tend to stay within that guideline, because when it's stored to memory, that will give you the best quality image. When you store it to memory and it's not in powers of 2, it'll actually squash it to be a power of 2, and then it'll stretch it back out afterwards when you use it, and you're gonna get you know, degradation on your image, and it's gonna look a little weird. So to get the best quality, we stick with powers of 2. So this is 128 by 128. I'm gonna go ahead and just do a new one real quick with the image I just copied, because I'm not sure what size this is. And my goal here, actually this is a really low quality image. I'm gonna have to pick a different one. That's not gonna work. But my goal with these images is to locate something that I can use in my texture. Actually, let's start with this one instead. Copy. All right. Again, file, new. Locating something in here that looks kind of like fire that I can use. So on here, I already see a couple pieces and parts that I can use, like this swirl here. I want something that kind of looks like it was always twirling and turning and pulling away from itself. So I like this thing that we've got going on right here. So I'm going to try to separate this from the image and then use it for my sprite. So I'm going to select this for right now, and we're just going to let's go just Control X, so that'll be cut. Control X to cut. I can then turn the rest of this off. These are layers, so I just turn the top layer off, and then Control V will paste. Now it's on its own layer, and I can see it separately. And I'm going to try to separate this out just by erasing it away. So right now I've got a background layer I can turn off, and you'll see checkerboard. Checkerboard is usually the way that programs and the internet tell you that there's transparency behind it. But I've realized there are websites that'll post images. Like if you ever go on Google Images and do a search and you find a bunch of images of stuff you want to use and you see a checkerboard, but that checkerboard is not transparency. They actually put a background of checkers on it. It's so frustrating. So this is actually transparency. It's not one of those sneaky texture websites that's like, haha, gotcha, can't use this image, right? But what we're going to do is erase away this image to get part of this swirl out of here. And then I'm going to use it as my first piece of this fire. So I'm going to go use an eraser. Erasers have different brush settings, so I can change it to be, you know, much more powerful in the middle, less powerful on the outside, so that it erases more right in the center of the circle and less on the outside. So you can see this kind of creates a little blur on here. And so I'm just going to get it kind of close to this and erase around it. Actually, I don't really want it to be blurry. Let's get this tighter. Let's go like a harder brush, something like that. And make it smaller. Okay, so when I go around this, I don't really want this edge, and I'm going to come back through and clean this up a little bit. I don't really want this edge here. Just cutting around. Actually, let's maybe cut this off sooner than this one. So there's like a little lip here. Just following what the actual image has is like the shape and everything. Getting different texture and color and everything going on. And then I like, it kind of loops up a bit here. I'm just going to take this and separate it. Maybe something like that. I don't know. We'll see how it comes out. Yeah, I don't like what I did there, but I learned another term yesterday, going through some training, staff training and whatnot, with some of the people from Epic. And they said that as you fiddle with things, change numbers, you know, keep tweaking things, they like to call it noodling. So whenever you are randomly changing numbers in Unity or tweaking an image over and over, you're noodling as per Epic Games. So I just wanted to give you a new thing. So here's going to be the basis of this shape, and now I'm going to kind of feather this out a little bit so we get something a little less harsh. So maybe like edges. I didn't want it to like blur everything, but I really don't like these like harsh edges that I've created, but I also enjoy the amount of detail some of it's got. So let's see what happens with it. The real test is like when I actually put it into Unity. So there's like the little swoop of various fire texture and whatnot going on. It's kind of hard to see if I got everything out here. So one thing you can do is just put a really obnoxious color in the background, like pink, purpley, you know, magenta-y looking stuff. And then you can kind of look around and see if you see any more of that image left over. But I think we got everything. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this piece. Edit, copy. I don't know why I did copy merged, but if I select the top one and then just do edit copy, it will copy just that layer. And then I'm going to go back to the original image, which was our 128 by 128. Control V to paste. So paste your image in. It's a little bigger than the space, but that's okay. I'm going to, crush it down just a little bit. Free transform or a transform tool of some sort. You can then change the size of it. You want to make it uniform, otherwise it's going to you know, crush things the same way that saving images would crush stuff. And then we'll just kind of place this within the center of this image a bit. And yeah, it's a good start. So we can take this and use it, or we can keep modifying it. One thing I want to modify on here is some of these details are not too different, and I want to really make them pop. So there's something called levels, which is just a fancy way of doing brightness and contrast, and like really making the darker sides like real dark and making the brighter sides, you know, like really pop. So I want anywhere that is like the bright yellow to be like really bright, and anywhere that is like dark to be much darker, but maybe not like black. So I'm gonna go into image, adjustments, and then levels. Once again, just a fancy way of doing brightness and contrast. But the nice thing about Photoshop is I can just use this little eyedropper and be like, this is pure bright. And then it goes, you know, like it's gonna get a little weird first. Actually, let's cancel. I'm gonna change this to, how do I wanna do it? I may need to do regular brightness and contrast because I can't let it change the color. No, let's go back to levels and just do the dark part. This will be like, yeah, it still gives me something weird. Cancel. I usually do this with a grayscale image, but because I want to save the color here, I don't want to change the, actually, why do I need to save the color? The material is colored. I'm going to go ahead and just grayscale it. So image, adjustments, let's desaturate to pull all the color out. Now it's just a gray blob. And then we'll go image, adjustments, and levels to bring this back up. This was like the brightest of white. And then we can make this, you know, super dark, wherever that is. Seems like it's like over here-ish. And then we can pull the where it's like black up a bit. So here on output levels, I'm just gonna drag black up so it's a little closer to gray again, to get something that, you know, looks more like what I want. And I can tweak even, this is like the darker tones, lighter tones, and then the mid tones. So mid tones I can pull up or down to change that whole thing, but I kind of like where it was. So, okay, this is my image, I'm gonna use it. So I'm gonna go File, Save As, and let's plop this out onto my desktop somewhere. I'm gonna use a PNG, and we'll call this, I don't know, VFX Fire. And smallest file size is fine. Okay. So I've got a, you know, an image I can use. Let's pop back over to Unity. Welcome back to our fire experiment of sort. And let's drag that image out into here. So desktop, fire, and then right into my folder. Close this, go back to my material, and I'm gonna assign this VFX fire into this albedo. I'm gonna also do that under color. And then right now, this doesn't have transparency on it. It's still doing it, it seems, but it doesn't actually have any transparency on it. I'm gonna change this image from input texture alpha to, actually, we'll change texture type to a sprite, I think, and then hit apply. No, it still looks about the same. But now I have something that has the different curls and stuff that I was looking for. And now I can tweak the material to be something that's a little closer to, right now it's like really bright. I can tweak the material to be a little less, you know, like bright. Let's go in here and be like, hey, you, lower. No? Okay, that one's not doing it. Undo. Maybe it's because I put an image in emission. Let's take it out. It's brighter now, but we see less of the detail. Instead of fade, we can go cut out. Maybe. Transparent, nope. Additive 2. Maybe not. Brighter, darker. Just gonna end up playing with it too much. So let's leave it for now. Like super bright. I didn't want it to be super bright in the middle. I can always tweak the image and make it more transparent or something. It's not going to change anything. All right. So let's go with, I'm going to tweak this a little bit, and I think remove that step I did, history levels. Let's just go back one. Maybe make the image semi-transparent. No, let's just go ahead and save this as that instead. Overwrite the original fire. Use the one that's like less bright, and we'll see if that gives us a better result. If you just overwrite this image, then we'll have it'll update in Unity. We'll drag out to the image here, overwrite, and anything different? No, it's still pretty bright. Oh well, we'll have to move forward. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Cut out. Alpha cutoff. Tighter, wider, no. Fade. Change this to white, I don't know. Brighter, wider, no. Less. Maybe we'll do transparency with something. Wider. Oh, if I change the emissive to be it, I see a little bit more of it in there. That's good, it's better. And didn't want to spend too much time on it, but 3. That looks really weird. That's lower, darker in the middle. Just go white. White and 0. Now let's see if I can change in here now. Particle system. Can I do alpha? Make it transparent? No. I can go all the way off for, there we go. Get something a little red. Oh, I'm actually seeing a difference now. That's good. Just looks like croissants now. White, red. I mean, if I can see color, then I can do some form of color over lifetime. Let's check that out. So I'm going to go into color over lifetime. I've got this preset that looks like fire. You can get something that's a little closer. Am I seeing transparency now? I might be. Tweak it a little bit more. I might finally be onto something. So colors seem to be there for the most part. It's just not transparent. So we need to get more transparency, but maybe brighter, something like that. Anyway. Yeah, it's not quite what I want, but I need to continue this. So let's keep moving forward. So off, on. I'm going to change the color of what we're looking at below this so I can actually see this on the floor. It's just a bright surface. Maybe I put a wall behind it. There we go. All right, so wall behind it. Click on that fire. And let's put a darker material here. That's a lot better. Okay, now I see something. So there's what we're starting with. The size of this is really big. Let's go back to, I know I noticed I just spent like way too long playing with that. Let's go back and change the start size to like maybe 0.5, get something a little smaller. And then we can, I want it to be faster. So let's increase the speed, but then decrease the lifetime. So like it's only like real quick like this. And then now we only see a few particles, a little bit more lifetime, a little bit less speed. We only see a few particles. Let's increase the number of particles. So emission, right now I'm doing 10. I'm going to do like, I don't know, 50. Now we're getting like stuff on top of itself. Still looks like croissants. There's definitely a better image I could use. I'm just not going back to it. We'll have to go with this for now. So there's going to be the basis of, fire starting from there. And then if I were to, I'll just do a demonstration real quick. But once I get something like this going, then I would use this as a basis for like a second particle system. Actually, let's change how this is rotated. Maybe if I start rotation a little more. So let's go just all of it negative 360 and 360. Just give me every possible way this could be rotated. Yeah, something a little less upside down. There we got something that's, you know, it's getting closer, but like this one in particular is just one piece of what I would do for like a multi-part fire particle system. So if I wanted to make this more detailed, there's always the rule of 3. So if something doesn't look right with just one thing, try adding more than just the one thing. So I'm going to duplicate this fire material, and we're just going to assign like one of the other textures that are in here, just as an example. But I'll find like a FX, and then I think there's like clouds and stuff. T flame. There's like this weird flamey thing. Let's use that one for right now. Let's see what that looks like. So if I use that, it's like already pinkish color. You know, it has like a default color to it. I don't know if there's a way to drown it out, but you can go white, gray. Oh, that's just how that's rendering on it. You can go much brighter here, maybe tweak this one to be more red. I don't know, something. Just play with it. Fade, no, let's do cutout. Where are you? Oh, it's really weird. That's not gonna work. Fade's fine. Okay, fade, additive, let's do soft particles, see if that helps us. That should make that blend a little bit. But now that I have another material set up, what I can do is go to particle system and then just duplicate this. So actually, let's reduce the amount of particles that's spawning. So emission to the 50, let's go like 25. And then I'm going to duplicate it and make it a child of itself, creating a second emitter. And then I can actually open the editor up and see both of them at the same time. So there's the second one, first one, second one. And then the second one, let's change the renderer, swap it out with this new one. Now I get this other shaped thing that's gonna go in here. This one I'm gonna keep at the very center bottom of this. So let's make it not have as much lifetime. So maybe like, just go speed a little lower and lifetime, maybe like 0.34, something like that. So the other pieces kind of tear away from the other one. And then this one, let's maybe not have it. Yeah, it's not bad. Don't really need it to rotate. And I could definitely reduce maybe the amount of the other one I have, or change the size of it. Just, you know, once again, going back to the weird word I learned, the noodling, changing things around to try to get something that you want. We can also change the shape. So if this cone, if I wanted this to be more of the interior of the fire, so something like that, and the rest peels off of it. There's lots of things you could do. Speed, let's go 1 lower, or 1.3, 4, 5, something like that. I don't know. There's different things you could do. Less of them, 10. It's not quite right, but getting somewhere. Less speed, 0.1. Not size, what am I doing? 5's fine, but 1 speed. Size, let's go 1. Nope. Actually, if you go 1 and then change the rate to be lower, so we have less of these things showing up. Nope, that was weird. Return. Once again, if I use my own image, I could probably make something that looks nicer, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. So let's just go ahead and be like, you know, this is the basis of creating a particle that kind of looks like fire. Be it from close up, far away, whatever. And you can continue to mess with it. continue to poke at the various things, like maybe we want to do stretch billboards to go up. I don't know. Depending on what image you're looking at, what fire you're using as a reference. It definitely looks better in certain directions than others, but it's a start. So fire, when it finishes, essentially goes to smoke. So the last thing I want to do is add smoke to this and then have it kind of billow out and whatnot. So I'm going to change this speed maybe a little bit too. Yeah, now we got something that's a little more together. Actually, that's not bad. I like that. That looks much better. Okay, so I'm going to do smoke, and smoke's going to actually spawn from this second particle system, the one that's in the center, the big old thick one. So smoke is going to appear as this one dies, and then we're going to have it fill the space. So let's create, instead of another sub-particle system, let's create its own second one, and the second one is going to handle that. So let's go create a game object, a effects particle system. This one I'm not going to spend so much time with references and whatnot. But you know, if you're doing this on your own, I urge you to go through the process that I was going through before to make something that looks a lot closer to the effect you want and not you know, something you throw together. So let's make a material for this just so I can at least get that right. Create a material. This is going to be VFX, smoke matte, and then let's change standard to particles, and this is going to be lit, so standard surface. I want things to actually light the smoke. It's better if you have like a normal map because then you can actually see the light shine against it. But we'll do, let's do just regular transparent, and then I'll change out the albedo. Or do we have any clouds? There's a cloud, real basic cloud. This one's a little weird, cloud. This would always look better if I went and grabbed something else, but we'll do this for now. So there's a transparent cloud material on smoke matte. So this new particle system, let's call this first one, you know, fire. Second one, or rather VFX fire. There we go. Now I'll know what that is. And this will be VFX smoke. Okay. And so smoke, whenever I see it, it usually starts out, you know, not there, and then slowly comes into view, and then gets big, and then disappears at some time, or at some point, rather. I may want to change the way I do this one, but let's find out how it works first. So I'm going to change the shape here to be a much tighter cone because it's going to spawn from somewhere. And I'm only going to spawn like one cloud, and the one cloud's going to come from each fire that dies. It doesn't need to be creating a bunch of little things. Just every flame that dies is going to create a plume of smoke, and it'll react in its own way. So let's do, it's like this will send them in a direction afterwards, which I might want, but I can always tweak that later and maybe change it. But so this smoke, let's have it move much slower, you know, like smoke does. That's like a smoke bomb, you know. And then let's get a change size over lifetime. So maybe the start size, I eventually want it to be like real big. Let's go like 5. And then let's change size over lifetime. So size over lifetime to, yeah, start little. I think I need a little puff of smoke thing going off, little smoke bomby thing going. It goes up, and then they eventually go away. So these kind of pop away, which I always hate when I see that in games. But depending on how the rendering works in this, it may not give me exactly what I want. I'm going to try to go to color over lifetime and change this to fade out. See if we can actually get it to work. Looks like it works. Okay, cool. So what I'm doing in here, this is a gradient editor for the color. The very top is alpha. The very bottom is color. And so what I'm doing is having it start faded out, go fully opaque and then fade out again at the end, which looks to be giving us our kind of what I want it to look like. This doesn't work for additive, bloomy, bright effects, but it seems to be working for smoke, so I'm okay with that. I need this to go longer. Lifetime needs to go higher. So lifetime, why am I not seeing it? Start lifetime, I'm right on top of the damn thing. Boom, 10. Goes like further off into the air. This kind of has a lot of ways it could go. It's not all together. So I can change the shape to be a little less crazy like that. Tighten this up a little bit. There we go. Now it's like all like a steady stream. Kind of like that. Now it's going to look different once I do it with the fire, but I'm going to see what it looks like first and then maybe change it as I go. I could also make this fire or this smoke kind of like move away from where it's at in a direction or something. For right now, we're going to stick with this. So I'm going to change this one now. Let's go renderer and maybe swap out this particle system and see if I can get this still to look good. So smoke matte, is it still fading out? No, it's popping now. It's the one reason why I might want to use the other one. Let's change this from particle standard surface to, let's go to legacy shaders and then particles and alpha blended, no, multiply. Nope, alpha blended, standard on that. Let's go. What is the default particle system set at? I could probably find out. Smoke, let's go undo. Turn this. This is set as, where are you? Particle standard unlit. That's it. Okay. Let's just go particle standard unlit on this one. Particles standard unlit. Just leave it as is. Maybe that's when it gets weird. Smoke matte. No, yeah, it still looks weird. And it could be just the image I'm using. Transparent. Cut out. So weird. Now it's like real high up there. Multiply. Color. Fade. Does that fade out? Yes, that one's fading out. Let's go with that. So that'll be my smoke. And let's now make this only spawn one, and then I'll have it spawn from the fire. So let's change smoke. I'm going to uncheck looping, and I'm going to go down to emission, change this to not rate over time. That's 0, but burst. Let's add a burst in here of 1. And that's it. Just burst at 1, and the interval is, I believe, how often it happens or something like that, but it starts at 0. So, or no, probability is how often it happens. Interval, I'm not really repeat the burst every, well, do not want it to repeat. No repeats. Oh, I think that's if there's a lifetime longer than a certain amount or something. I don't know. We'll find out. But it'll be a good start. So this one, this smoke effect, I don't want it to play on awake. We all remember play on awake for sounds and stuff. Uncheck that. So it's not starting immediately. And now I'm gonna go ahead and create an empty object where this fire is. Drag it out so it's not a child. We'll call this one fire and smoke. Or actually, we'll start with, let's come up with a better name. So fire with smoke, I guess. VFX fire underneath, and VFX smoke. Smoke doesn't immediately start, which is good. I'm going to put it kind of where the other one is. So 0, 0, 0, fire, 0, 0, 0. And then fire, the fire one, I'm going to go down to something else, which is called sub-emitters. Actually, sub-emitters, I may need to make it a child. Let's go ahead and drag VFX smoke underneath fire. So fire, sub-emitters. I want on the death of a particle, I would like it to use smoke. Here we go. Now it's spawning smoke from the fire. And I can take fire with smoke, move it above this wall so I can see if I can see it better. And if I wanted to change the where it's happening, like it kind of spawns up here, which is when the particle dies. I'm also spawning it on the wrong one, I see. Not this one. But if we go into the other one, which is like the center smoke, let's call it like, or center fire, I guess. VFX center fire. There we go. That's the one I wanted to do it from. Sub-emitters, death, smoke. There we go. Now it's coming out more so from the middle. We get something that, you know, kind of works together. So I could change a lot of things about it, but I think that's a great, you know, a great start for this. So smoke right now just kind of goes in a direction. So if I had this, you know, in the level somewhere, place it where this green is here, move this wall over. And so this here is cool and all, but it's kind of just in the space. And it just kind of goes in a direction. One thing I want to show real quick is, like, if you notice when I move it, I take the fire and I actually drag it around. Why are you over there now? I moved the wrong one. That back. There we go. Always got to remember to click on the parent. So if I move this, if the fire gets moved, for example, the smoke and everything is staying exactly where it was last, because it's moving in local space. I want it to move in world space. So if you wanted this like on top of like a train or something, it would leave the smoke behind. So I'm going to change this one from going to VFX fire at the top, the default module up here, and let's just change the, not scaling mode, but simulation space to world. And now you'll see when I move the fire, it lets the fire go. Same thing, center fire. Let's go up here to simulation space, world. And now if I move that one, it'll leave it behind, but you know, the smoke's now not doing that. So now if I change smoke, same thing, simulation space, world, I'll now get all three of them dumped as I move it. So you have like something on fire running and smoke being left behind and stuff. Super cool. Let's set this back to 0. So it's all at the original center point. And now I'm gonna move this down to where this wall is and move it out a little bit. And the last piece of this little demonstration that I wanted to do, change that, okay, is let's add a roof to this space. So I'm gonna build a roof, take this thing, move it over, and then fill this space. Okay, so this roof, if I'm looking at the fire, the smoke just kind of goes through the roof. And that doesn't look good at all. If we're burning in the inside of a building, why would it just pass through the roof, right? So you can add collision to particles. It can be very expensive. There's different ways to do it. But depending on how many of these you're doing and whatnot, you can probably limit the ones that are colliding and ones that are not colliding and that sort of thing. So if I go to smoke, and I'm going to change smoke to actually use collision, it's going to look weird at first. So right now it's not colliding because I'm using planes. But if I change, not planes, but let's do world, just world space. It's now going to roll off of the ceiling. You'll see it takes a moment to do this. There you go. So now it's hitting the ceiling and kind of bouncing down, which doesn't look real good. But what we can do is now change how it's doing this. So instead of bouncing, period, 0, no bounce. Why don't you just hit the ceiling and kind of roll off of it. It's a lot of particles. Mm-hmm. There you go. So it still looks a little bit weird. It's definitely hitting the ceiling, which is good. So radius scale particle bounds to this amount to get more precise collisions. That's fine. What I might want to do is change it so that it like dies a little bit if it hits something. So like maybe it loses half the lifetime if it hits a ceiling. Now we're getting like blink outs. And that doesn't look good either. So not lifetime loss, I guess, but it's a collider force. We can like change how it collides with stuff. A lot of different things we can kind of poke at. It's going to take a little too long to keep switching through these, so at least we're kind of covering it, but may not be something we need to spend too long on just because it looks weird. So if I start with fire, let's go stop, restart. So the smoke will travel up and then it'll hit the ceiling and then it just kind of billows out like that. And then it gets weird because there's too many particles there. So we can actually look at now if that's causing issues with the smoke. We can be like, hey, your lifetime is actually like 5 or 1, you know. It's not really filling this space then, and they're definitely still popping away. But maybe we can make it so smoke is always traveling in like a little bit of a different direction, like if the wind was blowing it or something, to see if we can get it to move away from this space instead of just going up. So let's do like velocity over lifetime and make it travel in a direction. So in here we got world space, and we're going to change it on, what is this, X? So on X, I want it to move 1. There we go. Now it like rolls out. That's kind of cool. So depending on how you're setting this up, you can find different settings that might work better for you. You know, depending. Like a lot of wind, blow it all the way out. Not sure why fire would do that, but it's still fun. A little bit, and I definitely want this the size over lifetime to be a lot smaller, maybe. So size, smoke, size over lifetime, set to 1, but maybe I'll do 5. Sorry, 1. And we get a little bounce off the ceiling. And you can make it travel a little slower. But yeah, just a whole lot of tweaking stuff as you go. And so this fire system is kind of set up so that if you duplicate it, actually, let's go ahead and duplicate I made it like a parent object, but I really didn't need to do that. Let's move this out because I was trying to keep smoke with it. So if I duplicate this and move it outside, we'll see that this one, as it goes, the smoke goes up, and then it'll hit this ceiling, and then it'll travel higher. So you can make like a little vent and actually have it go through the vent. You could take this fire and then change it. So like, for instance, this original one that I had, if I wanted this to fill more of a space, I could take this shape and be like, hey, this cone isn't working out. Let's go with like a box and then change this box so that it like fills like the entire room, you know. So if I change the scale of the box on Z, we'll just drag this up a bit. I go too small. Let's go like 5. Oh, that's the one weird thing about particles is that the particle system was written in a different axes. So even though to us y is up, this they've since rewritten the system in the newer versions, but this one's been around for quite some time. In this one, z is up, which is frustrating. That's why if you look up here, rotation, it's -90. It's like automatically rotated. So this fire we can actually change the size of to be more of like a fire wall of sort. And then we can increase the amount of them. So let's go in here and say mission in here 50 or 25. Let's go like 100 of these. There you go. So we get like a field, and then we'll do the same. Our shape here was 5 and then 1. So center fire, same shape, box, 5 here. Cool. And then the amount, I'm just going to go ahead and throw 100 on here as well, even though it's the same number. But then the smoke's still going to spawn from all the center ones. Come on. This is when you turn off collision. Or at least turn off collision with the world. There you go. Get somewhere. So I'd probably change that up a little bit more. But it works for, you know, a whole wall of fire essentially going across. And so we've got the 2 different versions. We got that one. We got the little one over here. Duplicate that, move it over. The one thing about these 2 fire systems, they're not actually casting any light. So something quick we could do is make it so that these center flames here actually created a light source. Or we could put a light source in the center, kind of either way. Let's turn that collision off just for a moment, or spawn less of these. Let's go stop, or turn off resimulate maybe. So that's going to be a whole lot of waiting. Do not resimulate when I click on it. I said don't. It's like automatically doing it. Anywho, center. It's gonna be okay now. Yeah, so what I want to do is talk about adding a light or whatever. So on this center one, there's actually a thing where you can add a light to it. So if I wanted to go lights, you can then put a point light in here and it'll actually spawn point lights with the particle system. So if I created a, let's go point light under here, and then just disable it. This way we can set it up, but then add it to the fire here. So drag point light down to, I have to pull it up, hold on. Center fire, go down, lights, point light, and then change the ratio to 1. And then we should see We go intensity, like 3 of those or something. There we go. Now we get the little flicker on the wall there, which is kind of cool. And we can duplicate this, put it in our wall, go back to the wall, and then assign on the center one, same thing, point light, where are you? Lights. We'll say ratio, sure, and assign point light. Boom. Now we get, there we go. So things just start coming together. So there's only one other thing that can really, finalize this out, that I can go ahead and try to do. I don't have too much experience with it, but this is all like stuff within the area. But one other thing that games will usually do on top of adding effects to create a feeling of something, like if you're underwater or you're in a different room or like a dark cave or something, is actually modify the post-processing so that you see a difference in like what the world looks like and that sort of thing. It's not something that I've spent a lot of time on, but I'm going to go ahead and try to do it. And if it doesn't work out, I'll cut it out of the video or something. Or I'll just put a note on the video that says, hey, I tried to do this and it didn't work out. But like you can create smoke and stuff and you can fill rooms with smoke. But if you ever wanted like the entire room to glow like green or something because you're like being gassed, this would work. We can walk through a room and see this and go, hey, this room is full of gas. What do I do? But if you wanted to actually color the room as if it was like completely on fire, you would probably try to do some sort of post-processing. So let's see if I can do something with that. So I'm going to create an empty in here, and we're going to say post-process volume. In this post-process volume, let's add a, box collider, and it's a trigger. And so this volume is not global, it's just in this location. And so I'm going to put it under here. Get it like right where this wall of fire is. So the idea of this volume is that the player is going to step into it, and we're going to modify how the player sees the world. Edit. So that it seems like this space is, much more dangerous than it looks to be now. Something like that. Okay, there's our space. We'll call this like smoke fire area of some sort, whatever that means. And then I guess we need a profile. So let's do a new profile, smoke fire area profile, and let's add an effect. And let's do like depth of field and color grading and things like that. So let's just immediately go like bloom. Like when you're in there, it's like bloom. I'm not sure how much I can get. Go intensity and be like 5. Let's just make it like super bright and just see what it looks like. I'm not sure if I'm going to see it immediately. But let's give it a shot. So play. Player's going to walk into that volume and see if it gets like super bright. Okay. So fire behind the wall, and we're going to go into the volume. No, this is like default. So not working yet. Fire looks good though. It's coming together. A single fire over here. Everything runs fine. But I want to make sure that that volume actually happens. I think there was a layer that I have set up. Priority. Higher priority. Sure. 100. Some sort of super priority volume. Let's see what that changes. I may have to change like a layer or something. If I'm in here, nothing. I wonder if I pause while I'm standing in it and look at the game. Can I modify this? So intensity of bloom. No, if I change the layer to post. Let's see if I can get anything while I'm in it. If I make this thing even bigger, I don't know. Who knows? That was why I was like, I'm not sure if I'll be able to figure this one out right now. I could set it to global real quick and just see if everything takes advantage of it. So if it's global, weight, priority, intensity, everything's super bloom, doesn't seem to be doing anything. Turn that one off, remove, and let's make everything blurry. Or lens distortion or something. Bloom, chromatic, color grading, depth of field. Sure. Let's look at game. So if I hit play now, maybe it'll change. Not maximize, minimize. Let's see if I can get depth of field to change it all now. Not getting anything. On. Oh, my layer's not the same again. Post. Super priority. Anything. I'm going to do a little quick research real quick. I want to make this thing work. Post-processing volume, Unity. Make it actually work in this. These things. Volume, oh, maybe I'm missing a layer. Hold on. Add post-processing layer. That creates a camera on it. I don't need a camera. No layer has been set. I want to change it to post. Anti-aliasing is fine. Maybe if I turn on the camera, that's why I see through. Let's go remove this camera. Can't. I'm wondering if it has to be the camera that's in the other part of the project or something. The layer is post. This layer is post. So now, I leave this camera on and hit play. What do we see? View. That's what we see now through this. Focal distance, anything. Doesn't seem to do anything. Remove, add, Unity, bloom. The easiest one to get some sort of change on. 50. Oh, there we go. Finally. So that seems to work on here. If I turn this camera off though, yeah, it's on this one too. Okay, cool. Seems to be working. So not 50. Let's go 10. And then let's go play and see if my camera sees it. Everything should be still bright. Yeah, okay, great. Much better. So it's right now it's doing it globally. I don't want it to do it globally. I want to do it when the player enters there. So not global. But when I walk into this space, I should see it change. Full on priority and everything. So let's walk in here and go Camera in. Yeah, okay. When I step in, it immediately was like, whoa, and now I'm like, oh my God, it's super hot in here, right? So it's only when the camera enters there, so I can then, I believe, change how it, yeah, blend distance. So maybe I change blend distance to 10 units, maybe. So 10 units away, it'll blend. We're getting somewhere. This was worth it. So this is 10 units away. If I start walking away from it, we'll see it. Yeah, there you go. It fades out. We start walking in. It's like, oh my God, it's really on fire. But this is going back to what I was talking about earlier. If you ever wanted to change like how an area looks, if you wanted to like glow a certain color everywhere or something, this is one way you could do that. So if I want to be like, no, like seriously, like fiery yellowy red kind of stuff going on, and intensity, sure, let's just stick with that for right now. Play. 5 units away now, orangey color. So it's like glows like everything. What's going on? Yeah. Run away from it. 5 units away is quite a bit. It's a little ridiculous. So let's go like 2 units away, so it looks like it blurs or blends, or maybe 3. No, 2. 2's fine. Color was like that orangey color, but maybe we go more intense yellow. And so like if you ever thought about, I'm definitely much further away than that. Let's see what's happening. Oh, I was doing, I'm changing intensity. I'm not changing the distance. My bad. 3 on the distance, weight. 1, we're already sure. Intensity, color, etc. That should look a lot better. I wonder why I was doing it immediately. So if I run into this room and it's like, whoa, everything's on fire. Yeah, it doesn't even matter about the effect at this point. It's all just super, super bright, and then we leave. Walk away from it. We get that. So this is how, if you ever wanted to change what it looks like, if you were underwater and you wanted the camera to look like you're underwater, you could change it. If you ever wanted to look like there was poison in the room, if you wanted to like distort everything, so like let's say this fire isn't, you know, fire so much, but it also for some reason is like warping the space. Let's see what else I have in here. So there's like chromatic aberration is going to give me something real weird looking. So intensity to maybe fast mode, sure, play. Now we're getting kind of hard to tell. It's getting like weird colors added to it, so you can see like it'll, in corners, you'll see purpley blue-ish going on in the corners. And then if I'm going to pause here and just see if I can modify this. So now if I remove that, yeah, it works now. So now instead of that, let's do like color grading maybe. And in color grading, let's change it. Mode. Tone mapping. There we go. Do like tone mapping and then do like different forms of tone mapping. Makes it look really, really different. I like the other one better. So ACS was fine. Let's turn off that one though. Let's turn off color grading and let's make it do something distort-y. So let's go depth of field, and then with depth of field, see if I can get the character to look like this direction. Pause. Jump. Pause. Okay. So while I'm looking at this, just as an example, of what I was talking about earlier. If I was like no bloom, but we did color, and we were like, hey, I'm really underwater, you know? So we'll go like underwater color. I don't really want to do bloom for that, but let's use that for right now. And then do depth of field, focus distance, aperture, length. Now we can blur everything. So it's like, who's in focus? Is the player in focus? Sure. What's the length of the focus? Distance. How far away can I see? Let's go not very far at all. I can only see like 2 units ahead of me, maybe, or 1 unit ahead of me. Aperture, pull it in. So now it's like real blurry out there. I can only see the player. Focal length, let's maybe tweak that a little bit. Go back into bloom and maybe do, it's like the colors nearby are causing that weirdness. And go like green. What else do I have in here? I could do, the color grading is still going to be where I want to go and not bloom. Color grading, and then we can do just channel mixer. There we go. Let's pull the reds out. So like all red. Let's go in the opposite direction. I want blue up. Okay, that's weird. It goes backwards. Blues. Red. Oh, those are like presets. Okay, blue. Nope, that's all the channels. You can change all of the channels of each channel, apparently. So red. No reds. Green. You can do like all blue in here. Super blue. The less blue goes like dark. Some other colors in here real quick. See what I can get. So you can actually like keep mixing that stuff to get you something that looks a lot more like I was saying, like underwater and stuff. It's kind of cool. If I unpause now, it's underwater fire. Purpley magic when I zoom really far away. And then if I run out, yay, back to real life. So let's go ahead and make that the end of this demonstration. It was a really long one, but I think this is super useful. Always good to try new things, especially with suggestions and whatnot. So thanks everyone for those who joined me. Thanks everyone who watches this later. I think that was a good one. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end the recording and then talk to those that are here still. So thank you and have a good rest of your day.